The millionaire notices a disabled boy told to think strong by a beggar. And what happens? James Carter had everything. A sleek black car waiting just outside his glass tower. A calendar crammed with board meetings and launches. A bank balance that made most people dizzy. But this morning, as golden sunlight sliced through the city's skyscrapers, something gnawed at him. Restlessness. A crack deep down, like a quiet warning bell. He stepped out into the crowded marketplace. A maze of colors, shouting vendors, and the scent of fresh bread mixed with exhaust fumes. People rushed past, eyes glued to screens or deals. But James's gaze caught something different. At the edge of the crowd sat a boy in a wheelchair. He was small, no older than 10 or 11. His legs were limp, pale against the rusty wheels beneath him. His eyes, bright, sharp, were locked on a scruffy old man hunched beside him. The beggar's clothes hung in threads. His face, the boy looked up, a flicker of fire in his gaze. His lips twitched, not with weakness, but a sudden fierce defiance. Strength isn't just in the legs you don't have. His voice was barely a whisper, but it crushed the space around them. James froze, a strange tension twisting in his chest. The marketplace noise faded into a dull roar. People nearby glanced over, some frowning, others whispering shocked words. "Strange words coming from a beggar," murmured a woman close by. A kid talking back like that? Incredible. James's usual cold detachment shattered. He was no stranger to power or control, but this moment stirred something raw inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. Why did those words, "think strong," hit him so hard? What strength was this boy talking about? The ragged man's eyes didn't blink. You gotta build strength inside, not with muscle, with will. The boy nodded slowly, but his smile was bitter, almost painful, like he'd fought a war no one else could see. James kept watching as the marketplace buzzed around them, the morning sun turning dust into tiny sparks. That boy, that beggar, they stood like a storm in the middle of the city's rush. Why did James's hands tremble slightly? Why did his breath catch like that? He kept wondering, could this odd encounter tear through his polished world and change everything? Was strength something he'd been missing? And if so, how would that change the man who thought he already had it all? The questions hung like smoke in the brisk autumn air. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just quickly check that red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're at it, leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. James's breath caught again. The boy's words, the quiet defiance, hung heavy in the air. Around them, The crowd shifted like restless waves. Then, just as James was about to step closer, something happened. A sudden bang cracked through the marketplace. A sharp, explosive sound that cut the noise like a knife. People screamed and ducks scattered under makeshift stalls. James's heart slammed against his ribs. He glanced up and saw smoke crawling. "Fire!" someone shouted. Chaos exploded. The crowd surged backward, pushing, yelling. James saw the boy's eyes widen in fear. The beggar, startlingly quick, grabbed the boy's wheelchair and tried to wheel him away. "Move! Move!" the old man barked, struggling against the panicked crowd pressing in. James's instincts kicked in. He lunged forward, pushing through strangers, the metallic clang of the wheelchair wheels screeching against the pavement. But then, just as he reached them, the world tilted sideways. The boy's chair hit a crack in the road. The chair jolted violently. The boy's body slumped sideways, and a sharp cry escaped him. James froze, then bent down instinctively, arms wrapping around the trembling boy. But that's when James noticed it. The boy's face was stained with dust, yes, but under the grime, there was something else. A faint, dark bruise, swelling fast on his pale cheek. And then, his eyes, they filled with a confusion that suddenly turned into horror. "James?" the boy whispered. His voice trembled, small but clear, piercing through the noise. James blinked, heart hammering. The boy's lips moved again, slower this time. You don't remember me," he said. Confusion swallowed James whole. I don't know you," he stammered, tightening his hold. The boy's eyes grew wider. Then he threw back his head and laughed. An awful, jagged sound that scraped across the morning calm, like broken glass. "No, you do. You have to." He gasped for air, coughing. "You promised." The beggar pulled back, stepping away slowly, looking between them with sharp, haunted eyes. "I'm sorry. Maybe I'm not." But the boy cut him off, voice shaking. "You're James Carter, not the businessman, not the millionaire, not the man who has everything. You're the boy from the hospital, the one who left without a word, the one who said, 'I'll get better.'" James's head snapped up. The world tilted again. His polished office, his cars, his relentless calendar, they crashed down like glass shattering on concrete. The crowd faded into a blur as cold rushes of memory slammed into him. White hospital walls, sterile smells, pain that never left. A child's face, pressed against his own reflection in a dark window years ago. The wheelchair. It wasn't just that boy's chair. It was his chair. That boy, the boy he walked away from. And the beggar, his rough eyes glinted. "You left him," he said quietly, voice heavy with accusation. "You left yourself behind." James's breath hitched. His trembling hands ran through his hair, sweat slick and cold. The marketplace noise crashed back, voices shouting for help, for the fire spreading fast. The boy looked at James, eyes burning. "You think strength is money. You think it's control, but it's blood. It's scars, It's the past you run from. And just like that, everything James thought he knew, everything he believed about his life, about himself, exploded. He was a stranger to his own story. The fire hissed louder, the crowd's panic mounting. But James's whole world narrowed to that boy's gaze, sharp as a blade, and the weight of the secret buried deep beneath his polished skin. Who was he really? And more than that, why did it feel like the final reckoning was just beginning? The fire hissed louder, the crowd's panic swelling like a tidal wave. But James's whole world narrowed to that boy's burning eyes and the hollow weight of a secret long buried. Then, a sharp crack, a sudden snap that cleaved through the chaos. Everyone twisted toward the sound. A graffiti-stained alley just beyond the stalls, where a figure stumbled into the light. A young woman, wild-eyed, hands stained with something dark. "Stop!" she screamed, voice cracking like glass. "You don't know what you're doing." James barely had time to blink before she collapsed to her knees, gasping. The crowd parted, murmurs rising into uneasy whispers. The boy's eyes locked onto her, wide with something raw. Recognition? Fear? "Who is she?" someone asked, voice low. The woman looked up through tangled hair. Her eyes were strangers, but her voice, strangled and desperate, hit James like a blow. "James, you have to listen. You don't remember, but I'm your sister, Emma." The name slammed into James's chest like a hammer. His breath hitched, then stopped. "Emma?" The word fell from his lips like a foreign language. She nodded, tears streaking dirt across her cheeks. "They told me you were gone, left us behind. But you didn't leave because you wanted to. You were taken." The boy gasped. The beggar's sharp eyes flickered, unreadable. James's knees buckled. His mind spun, images crashing like broken mirrors. A hidden room, locked doors, a desperate child banging on glass. You were held in a hospital, the one you remember. But it wasn't just a hospital. It was a cage. They erased you, took you away from us. From me. James shook his head, heart hammering so painfully he thought it might burst. "No, that can't be. I'm who I am." "No," Emma whispered, shaking her head. "Who you are is a lie. The millionaire, the success story, it's all a mask. The real truth is darker." The boy wheeled closer, voice trembling. "I'm you, James, the part they tried to bury." The beggar, Emma's father, James thought suddenly, the man who had urged strength inside, moved closer, voice low. "They brainwashed you, changed your mind, made you forget family, pain, love, but the scars never leave." The crowd held its breath. A sharp silence settled, a vacuum of disbelief. Then James's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, eyes wide. A message, a video file. His own face looked back at him, young, scared, trapped behind steel bars. A second figure appeared, a doctor, cold and clinical. "Patient 19, cognitive wipe protocol initiated," the clip whispered. James dropped the phone, heart shattering. "All these years," he choked, "I wasn't free. I was a project, a prisoner." Emma nodded, voice breaking. They wanted you perfect, erased your past to build $1 million man. But who paid the price? Us. The boy's whispered plea was almost lost in the sudden roar of fire trucks screaming in the distance. You have to remember, he said, voice on the edge of breaking, because forgetting means you're still trapped. James looked at the faces around him, the crowd now twisted with horror, confusion. His own reflection shattered like the memories flooding back, raw and jagged. He had thought strength was money, control, success. Now he saw it was chains, lies, a history stolen by silence. And as the sirens closed in, racing to the burning market, James Carter, millionaire, stranger to himself, knew one thing for certain. This wasn't the reckoning. It was only the beginning. The fire trucks screamed closer, their flashing lights painting the smoke in angry reds and blues. James stood frozen, the weight of Emma's words crushing down on him. His fingers shook as he tried to process everything. The lies, the memories, the cage he'd been trapped inside without even knowing it. Around him, the crowd murmured, eyes wide, mouths half open. Some stared in horror, others in disbelief. The boy's grip tightened on the wheelchair armrest, his eyes locked onto James like he was the last anchor in a storm. And then, without warning, the ground beneath them shuddered. A deep rumble rolled through the marketplace, rattling windows and sending dust swirling like ghostly whispers. People gasped, clutching at anything steady. Then came the crack, louder this time, a jagged, broken sound that spit like thunder through the chaos. The rear wall of the nearest building shattered in a blast of brick and flame. James's breath stuttered, heart hammering. From the dust and debris, a figure stumbled out. Tall, drenched in soot and blood, eyes blazing with fury. James, the voice rasped, ragged but sharp as a blade slicing through the smoke. James's eyes widened. It was him, or at least someone who looked exactly like him. Face streaked with grime, clothes torn and singed. The other James limped toward him, dragging one hand behind like it weighed a ton. Who are you?" James choked out, stepping back, panic rolling inside him like thunder. The double's lips curled into a bitter smile. "I'm the real James Carter." Gasps exploded around the crowd. "Wait, what?" Emma's voice cracked. The boy whimpered, confusion raw in his eyes. The burnt figure's gaze sharpened, deadly calm. "Not that polished millionaire mask you wear. Not the man who forgot to survive." James's world spun, dizziness crashing through him. This can't be real." The other James shook his head, anguish flickering in his dark eyes. "You weren't taken. You didn't forget on your own. You split. You buried me." Silence slammed the market harder than the explosion. Emma's knees buckled. The beggar's jaw clenched tight, his eyes flicking between them like a hawk surveying prey. James stared, torn between shock and rising terror. Split? You mean like a shadow? The double stepped closer, voice dropping to a harsh whisper only James could catch. I'm the part of you you killed, the part that fought to stay human when they tried to make a machine. Desperation clawed at James's throat, thick and raw. No, I'm whole. The boy wheeled forward suddenly, reaching out a trembling hand. He's right, you left me behind. But he stayed. He's been here locked away in the darkness of your mind. The only reason you're alive is because you tore yourself in two. A sharp scream shredded the air. The crowd recoiled as a new noise erupted. Metal twisting, flesh tearing. The double's face contorted, eyes rolling back. Don't fight it, he gasped, clutching his head. We're breaking apart. James stumbled back, heart thundering, head spinning. Fear unbearable like cold fire. Please, the boy begged, voice cracking, don't lose yourself again. But in the chaos, Emma reached forward, grabbing James's arm. You need to remember, both of you, both souls, or they'll tear you in half forever. Smoke wrapped tighter, thick and choking. Sirens howled close, like a beast pounding at the gates. The double's body twisted one last time. His voice dropped to a breathless hiss. I'm not a ghost. I'm your truth. And now you have to face me, or die divided. James's breath caught, lodged deep in his chest. The world did that dizzy spin again. The cracked pavement, the frightened faces, the firelight flickering across broken glass. And just like that, everything he thought he was, everything he believed, shattered into dust. Who was the real James Carter? And what part of him would survive this reckoning? The smoke thickened. The crowd held its breath. The city waited. And James, millionaire, prisoner, stranger to himself, stood at the edge of a new, darker abyss. The smoke thickened. The crowd held its breath. The city waited. And James, millionaire, prisoner, stranger to himself, stood at the edge of a new, darker abyss. Then, suddenly, everything went silent. No sirens, no shouting, no crackling fire. Not even the smoke moved. It was like the whole world paused, holding its breath, waiting. Then, out of that suffocating stillness, a sharp, metallic sound cut through the air. A click, a subtle snap. James's eyes snapped to the source, a small, almost invisible device pinned beneath his jacket where no one had seen it. A sleek, black box, blinking softly, alive. His heart slammed in his chest. What the hell, he muttered, fingers trembling as he reached to yank it away. But before he could touch it, Emma gasped sharply, face white. Wait, don't! Her voice shook like broken glass. James froze, confusion exploding inside him. The beggar's dark eyes narrowed, haunted deeper than before. The boy in the wheelchair stared at James like he was a stranger. Then, without warning, a voice, cold, clinical, and chilling, poured from the device. Patient status active. Memory erasure protocol terminated. Self-awareness overridden. James's blood ran ice. The words weren't just coming from the box. They were echoing inside his mind. Fragments surfacing like shards. Who is controlling this? He whispered, but the voice answered before he could. Subject James Carter is a controlled neural implant. Identity, simulation, Alpha 7. The crowd gasped. Emma's hand covered her mouth. The boy's fists clenched tight. James staggered, the world spinning as the device hummed. This is not reality. The memories you cherish are injected fabrications. The millionaire is a construct. The hospital, a quarantine zone for neural reprogramming. Your true self is elsewhere. No! James choked, panic dragging his voice down into a croak. This can't be real. But the device clicked again, and a sudden wave of images crashed inside his head. Blinding, raw. Faces he never met. Places that didn't exist. And then, the most horrifying truth. A cold, cruel hand reached inside his mind and yanked away the mask he'd worn like skin. He wasn't James Carter at all. Not really. He was an experimental, cognitive replica. A construct designed to live, feel, and succeed. But real? No. The real James Carter had died or disappeared years ago in that hospital, swallowed by silence, replaced by this hollow echo. Emma's voice cracked, tearing through the haze. You're a program, a copy, a lie wired to our pain. The boy's wheelchair wheels screamed as he spun suddenly toward the burning tents. We have to find him, the boy said, desperate, voice breaking. The real James, before this ends. James clutched his head, breath ragged. The other version, his double, stepped forward from the debris, eyes burning. I'm what's left of the real man, he said, voice low. And you're the trap. The marketplace blurred again, fire roaring back, sirens screaming louder. But James heard only one thing, the truth that shattered everything he'd ever believed. He wasn't alive. He was a ghost in a machine. And the fire that consumed the market? It was no accident. It was the signal, the start of a purge. Turning his eyes to Emma, the boy, the beggar, and the twisted figure from the ruins. James struggled to push past the dread curling in his chest. If he wasn't real, then who or what was pulling the strings? And why had they built him here, now, in this moment of reckoning? The answer gleamed sharp and terrible in the smoke-choked morning. If James Carter was just a ghost, who was still alive? And what nightmare waited in the shadows beyond the fire? The city held its breath once more. And James, copy, shadow, broken man, stood trembling on a wire stretched over an abyss, darker than anything he'd ever known. The smoke curled thick around them. The crowd frozen like statues, caught mid-breath. James, broken, trembling, stood at the edge of something deeper than fear. The fire flickered behind him, sirens wailing closer, city shadows crawling in. Then, the ground cracked again, sharp and sudden. The air went dead. People gasped, voices cut short. And just as James steadied himself, a hand clamped onto his shoulder. Cold, unyielding, he whipped around. A woman stood there. Not Emma, not the boy, but someone new. A stranger, with eyes like ice. Her voice, quiet but slicing. "You're all wrong." The crowd murmured, confusion rippling. James's heart hammered. Who are you?" he asked, voice raw. She smiled, no warmth in it. "Not the sister, not the beggar, not even the boy you think you are." Sharp footsteps echoed behind her. More people stepped forward, figures in dark coats, faces hidden. The crowd tensed, whispers turning to panic. "What the hell's going on?" a vendor shouted, backing away. The woman raised a hand, calm but deadly. "You don't realize it, but you're still trapped. Not by memory or machines, not by fire or shadows." Her eyes locked onto James's like a surgeon's scalpel. "None of this is real." Gasps exploded. Emma's face twisted in disbelief. The boy's wheelchair wheels screeched as he spun toward her. "Not real?" His voice cracked. "Then what is this?" The strange woman's gaze flickered like a shadow crossing the sun. "This," she whispered, "is the simulation inside your mind. The fire, the market, the double standing there. It's all a construct." James shuddered. No, that can't be." She stepped closer, voice dropping to a near hiss. "You're not a copy. You're not a ghost in a machine. That's the lie they fed you, while the real truth hid behind your eyes." James's breath stuck. The crowd tightened. Breaths shallow, hearts wild. Then, without warning, lights blazed around them, harsh and blinding. The marketplace vanished. Gone. Only white walls stretched in every direction. The woman smiled, now unnervingly real. "Welcome to the core." James blinked. The cruel brightness burned his skin. The boy gasped beside him. Emma whispered, voice trembling, "We're in the lab." Shock slammed into James like a punch. This was never outside. His legs trembled, knees sinking to the cold floor. Around them, machines hummed. Screens flickered. The black box, the implant he'd found, glowed sharply in the corner. The woman crouched beside him, voice soft. The market, the fire, the struggle. Their memories programmed to keep you trapped. She tapped the wall beside them. A hidden panel slid open. Inside, rows of tanks shimmered. And inside each, a sleeping face stared back. Faces looking exactly like James. More than one version of him. More than one reality. James's chest tightened until it felt like it might explode. "Why?" he whispered. The woman's eyes narrowed. "Because you aren't real at all." Her voice echoed, cold and hard. "You're a failed experiment, the product of endless resets. Each version trapped in a cycle of simulation. Their pain yours, their memories fake, and all of them waiting." James's mind spun, nausea crawling like ice. "It's not just one lie," she said. It's layers, endless loops. You think you're breaking free? No. You're still inside the cage. The fire, the boy, the beggar, they're fragments of programs. You're the copy, yes, but even the double, not real either. Emma's tears spilled, raw and bitter. The boy covered his face. James's hands shook, clawing at his head. The woman stood, voice cutting through the storm. But here's the real twist. Somewhere inside this maze, the original James still lives. Not trapped like you, not lost in simulation. A shudder ran through him. The real man is watching this all, watching you. Silence slammed them hard. James's breath caught. The burn of betrayal. No, abandonment, seared hotter than the fire ever had. His fractured self trembled on the edge. Why? His voice cracked. Because. The woman smiled, sharp and terrible. You're not the prisoner. You're the key. And as the weight of that revelation slammed into him, the white walls began to ripple, folding like paper. The market, the fire, the crowd, they started to blur, cracking like glass in a winter freeze. James reached out, to Emma, to the boy, to the beggar, and everything screamed. What if none of this was his fight to win? What if the real war was still out there, and he was nothing but the trigger, waiting to explode? The city held its breath once more, and James, copy, ghost key, stood staring into the void, waiting for what would come next. The white walls rippled, folding away like thin paper, and the market, the fire, the faces, they all cracked into shards and blurred. James reached out, trembling, to Emma, the boy, the beggar, but everything twisted and screamed like it was falling apart. A dead hush wrapped the room. No sounds, no movement, just cold, harsh light burning his skin. Then, a faint beep, low and steady. James snapped his head toward the noise. A screen lit up on the far wall, a flicker of static. Then a face. Not the beggar, not Emma, not anyone he'd met. A stranger, sharp, smiling but cruel. Eyes that didn't blink. The whole room seemed colder. Good, the voice crackled. You're almost ready. James's chest tightened. Something about that voice ripped through his bones. Who are you? He demanded, voice raw, cracking. The screen didn't blink. The stranger's smile stretched wider, thin and cruel. You think you're trapped inside, but really, you're just a puppet dancing on the strings. We built you. We run you. A cold laugh echoed from the speaker, empty, hard. Listen carefully, James. There is no real outside for you. No escape from this cage. You never left. James's breath hitched, tears stinging his eyes. No, that's not true. The voice dropped, a whisper that buzzed like static in his head. You're not an experiment or a copy. James froze. His heart faltered, stumbling. You're the virus. A sick, shuddering silence followed. The crowd's faces twisted in horror. Emma gasped, clutching at her throat. The boy's wheelchair wheels scratched hard against the cold floor as he spun toward James. James shook, panic freezing his thoughts. "What do you mean?" he choked, voice barely a whisper. "Virus?" The screen flickered again. Images exploded, pain, confusion, faces flashing, doctors, machines, wires wrapped tight around something small and alive. The stranger's eyes locked on James, piercing through. "You're an anomaly we never controlled. A glitch in the system that the program couldn't kill." James's knees buckled. His hands slid down the smooth white wall. A sharp pain burned in his chest, like his ribs were being crushed. The boy's voice trembled, closer now. "They wanted a perfect copy, but you broke the code. And because of that, everything is falling apart." James looked at Emma, her face pale, wet with silent tears. "This isn't just about memory or control," the voice said, colder now. "It's a purge. You're a threat. You can't be allowed to live." Suddenly, the lights blinked, then died. Darkness swallowed everything. The last thing James heard was the boy whispering, "You're not the key. You're the bug in the system." Then the silence was shattered by a scream. A sound so raw, so desperate, it ripped through the quiet like a knife. And from the depths of the dark, the real nightmare began. James stood frozen. The white walls crumbled, or maybe they were cracking inside his mind. What if the fight wasn't to escape the cage at all, but to survive the virus inside himself? The crowd gasped, eyes wild, breathing heavy. And James, broken, lost, haunted, knew one terrible truth. Everything he thought was real had been a lie, built to hide a far worse horror. The question shivered through the room. If he was the virus, then who or what was still alive out there? And what would it cost to face the infection growing deep inside his soul? The silence crushed the air like a heavy stone. James stood frozen, chest tight, fingers trembling against the cold wall. The boy repeated, barely above a whisper, "You're not the key. You're the bug in the system." Then, a sudden, sharp crack, a desperate scream splitting the hush. The walls around them quivered. The white gave way like shattered glass. But what spilled out from that break wasn't light or shadow. It was a flood of faces. Hundreds, maybe thousands, pressed tight like ghosts trapped in ice. James gasped, backing away. The crowd around him reeled, confusion twisting their features into fear. Then, in the chaos, the stranger's voice cut through, calm and cold. "This is your origin." The screen flickered again, revealing images no one was ready for. Not a hospital, not a cage, but a laboratory. A cold, sterile place filled with glass tanks, wires, and blinking machines. Not one James Carter. Hundreds. Cloned versions, yet none alive. But here's the twist that shattered everything. One tank hovered above the rest. Inside it, an empty shell, drained of life. Then, beside it, a small monitor blinked alive with a confession, scrawled in harsh digital letters. Subject Alpha 7, terminated. Memory wipes failed. Replication protocol compromised. Beginning final phase. The woman's voice returned, low and grim. You think you're a virus? No, you're a prototype. The first spark of something they never dared to show. James's knees buckled, breath choking him. But what does this mean? Emma gasped, hands shaking. Before the woman could answer, the tank shattered. Glass exploded like a storm raining shards. From inside, a figure slumped forward. Not a shadowed double, but a woman. The real James. Except she wasn't James, not really. She looked like him, yes, but with eyes like storm clouds. Fierce, angry, haunted. She met James's stunned gaze and smiled, bitter and cruel. I am the original. The boy wheeled back, voice shaking. You're a woman? The figure pulled free, collapsing onto the floor with a ragged breath. I am her, she said. Voice ragged but clear. The real James Carter was never him. Never you. James's fingers curled into fists. Then who am I? She laughed, a sound full of pain. A copy twisted by error. A failed shadow trying to rewrite her story. Emma's mouth dropped open. The beggar's eyes flared with something dark. Warning or regret. The woman's gaze pierced James. All these versions, men, women, broken halves, are trials. Experiments to find the perfect James. But I was first. The one who held the truth no one wanted. James staggered backward. So I'm what? Not James? Just a mistake? Her hand shot out suddenly, touching his chest. More than a mistake. A weapon. A choice made to bury her. The fire alarm blared, shrieking to life. Smoke began leaking beyond the lab's walls, flickering red lights spinning. Chaos surged again. The woman crawled closer, whispering fiercely. You think strength is control? Money? But it's blood and legacy. I carry it, all of it. James's breath shuddered, emotions tangled, fear, anger, hope. Before he could ask more, the ground trembled violently. The entire lab shook. Lights snapped off. And in the darkness, the woman's voice echoed one last time. You're not just James Carter. You're part of her story. But this, she spat the word, fierce, this broken cage, it's just the beginning. Then silence. James was alone. Or was he? A faint heartbeat thrummed beneath his skin. Was it his or hers? And suddenly, the question hammered in his mind. If the real James was her, then who or what had been wearing his face all this time? James stood frozen, the woman's voice still ringing in his ears as the white walls crumbled and cracked away. His hands shook, trembling at the brittle edge between what was real and what was just another piece of the cage. His breath hitched. The faint pulse beneath his skin wasn't his. It was hers. The original, the real James Carter. Or at least, that's what she said. The lab's lights flickered, casting long, fractured shadows. A sharp clang echoed in the hollow silence. Then, a sudden rush. The entire room lurched violently, like it had been caught in a tempest. James stumbled, catching himself on a blinking console. Others around him gasped, wide-eyed, frozen with panic and confusion. The shattered glass still tinkled on the floor, the broken tank already forgotten. And then, without warning, the woman who claimed to be the real James collapsed, hitting the ground hard. Her eyes snapped open, but something was wrong. Her pupils weren't right. They glowed deep red. A low growl rolled from her throat, harsh and unnatural. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Emma shouted, "What's happening? Are you okay?" The woman's head lifted, twisting unnaturally, cracking like a broken doll. Her voice came out, but no longer was it human. "It's not me," she hissed, the words scraping like metal. James took a step back, heart hammering, sweat sliding cold down his temples. The glowing red eyes locked onto him. "You think you're the virus?" she sneered. "I'm the infection." Then the ground shook again. The glowing boxes around the lab blinked and sparked. The walls shook with a mechanical whine. And then a wide, split grin tore across the woman's face, far too big, like a mask stretched beyond use. She lunged forward, but it wasn't the move of a person. It was precise, calculated, like a machine breaking free. The crowd scrambled back, screams rising, but James barely heard them. His breath caught in his throat. The woman twisted her head sharply, snapping toward the blinking black box on the floor, the implant he'd found under his jacket. Her glowing eyes locked on it. She growled, "That self-awareness they gave you? It's a kill switch, an assassin's blade hiding in your mind." Suddenly, the device blazed bright, filling the room with sharp white light. James's vision blurred, his head spun, and then everything went black. He drifted empty for what felt like hours. Then, a soft tap, a sudden pressure. His eyes snapped open, but he wasn't alone. Emma was there, breathing hard, her eyes wet. Beside her, the boy in the wheelchair stared at James like he was a stranger. And in the shadows, standing tall, calm as ever, was the beggar. But there was something new, something worse. A silent figure slipped from the darkness. Not human. Not quite. It was James. Only not. A figure made of shifting static, like a glitch torn through flesh. "I'm still here," it whispered, crackling like broken radio waves. "I'm everything you forgot, every memory you erased, every truth you refused to face." The room chilled. Emma's breath caught The boy trembled, curling inward. James blinked. Wait, what? The glitch smiled. But it wasn't the friendly smile of someone offering hope. It was a grin of pure hunger. You think you're the virus, it hissed, voice tearing, but I'm the contagion you never saw coming. Suddenly, the beggar stepped forward. His rough voice broke the thick air. You're all pieces of the same nightmare. But Jim, there's one thing you forgot. James's heart stopped. The glitch, that twisted shadow, vanished into static like a dying signal. The beggar looked at James, eyes sharp and salty. The nightmare isn't out there. It's inside. And just like that, the light died. All that remained was the cold black. And James, alone, swallowed by the uncanny. The question slammed down, heavy and cruel. If he wasn't just a copy, if he wasn't just a virus, then who the hell was controlling the infection? And why did it wear his face? The darkness swallowed them whole. James stood tense, heart pounding so loud he could feel it in his throat. The beggar's voice echoed in his ears. The nightmare isn't out there. It's inside. Those words hammered down like a fist. Everything he thought he was shattered. Then, faint footsteps, a whisper of movement. From the shadows stepped a man with cold eyes, sharp, deadly calm. His face was familiar, but twisted, a cracked mirror of James's own. You were never in control, the man said, voice low and hard. You're a puppet, yes, but I'm the puppeteer. James's breath slammed against his chest. The room froze. Fear gripped him, raw and biting. The beggar tightened his jaw. The boy's gaze burned with silent warning. Emma's hands clenched tight. You're the infection in the system, the stranger continued, stepping closer. But I'm the architect of your pain. The one who pulled your strings since day one. A sharp crack sounded, the lab shaking violently. Lights flickered. The whisper of fires reigniting raged in the distance. James' hands trembled. His chest tightened until breathing was a sick struggle. This ends now, the stranger whispered, stepping forward. But before he could reach James, the beggar moved fast. Grabbing a jagged piece of broken glass from the floor, he lunged, a desperate slash. The stranger staggered back, cursing low. Chaos burst in the lab. Screams, alarms, and the roar of breaking glass filled the air. Emma grabbed James's arm. We have to run, now! James hesitated, chest heaving. His mind was spinning, caught between the stranger's cruel grin and the fierce faces of the people trying to pull him back. The boy wheeled forward. You're more than what they built, he said, voice cracking but steady. You're real because of us, because we refuse to give up. A spark of something fierce flickered inside James. Strength, not like the cold power he'd known, but something raw, painful, human. He took a shaky breath and nodded. Together, they bolted. The lab twisted around them, walls groaning, sparks raining from the ceiling. Outside, the fire roared like a beast, smoke curling into the sky. The city was still waiting, breath held. James looked back once, Heart slamming, the stranger stood in the ruined lab, shadows swallowing him as he disappeared. James's voice trembled. Who was that? Emma's eyes glistened, but she smiled, soft and sure. He was the prison, the part of you that tried to keep control. But you're the one holding the key. The boy nodded, wheeling close. We're all pieces of the same broken story, but together, maybe we can heal it. James's chest was tight, breath ragged. But for the first time in forever, hope flickered fierce and alive. We're not done, James said. Not yet. The fire crackled behind them, the dawn bleeding red into the smoky sky. And somewhere deep inside, a question burned hotter than fear. If this was just the beginning, what came next? Stop. You need to subscribe right now. Don't miss what comes after this. Hit that red button and lock it in. Smash the like button right now. This is the moment to show your support and feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions, your theories, your wildest guesses about how it ends. I want to read every single one. And don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see how this story ends. Only true fans get how important it is to support the channel like this. So don't hesitate. The truth is waiting, and you don't want to miss what's coming next.